this, wouldn't jeopardy not yet be attached? And so this could go up to the appeals court to have, for this whole thing to be appealed?
Yeah, you don't often hear me utter the following phrase, Brian. I hope Donald Trump wins this motion.
Right.
Why? Because he will be reversed on appeal. There is absolutely no doubt. If she rules that this whole special counsel thing is just not lawful or constitutional, notwithstanding that we've been doing it here since the 1800s, Jack Smith will file an appeal with the 11th Circuit, and not only will he win that appeal, the 11th Circuit will overturn that ruling, but I am almost convinced that it will finally give Jack Smith everything he thinks he needs to file a motion to recuse, to have her removed from the case because her impartiality might reasonably be questioned, which is the standard in the federal law requiring a judge to be removed from the case. So yes, I hope Donald Trump wins this motion, even though there is no legal support for the claim he's making. But I don't expect he will. I think this has given Donald Trump precisely what he wanted: more delay.
Right. I completely agree. And I think that Judge Cannon knows that. And so she'll humor all of this stuff, knowing that this dilatory tactic is intended for one thing, and that's just to give him delay. But at the end of the day, she doesn't want to do anything to imperil her ability to preside over this case, like making it an absolutely insane, outlandish ruling, like the whole thing should be dismissed, because then she knows that would put her ability to preside over the case at risk. Glenn, there was also another story in the New York Times that said that 2 judges had actually pushed for Judge Cannon to recuse herself, and she opted not to. What did you make of that?
It's kind of a big deal because one of the 2 judges named in the New York Times article is actually the chief judge of the Southern District of Florida federal jurisdiction, Judge Cecilia Altanaga. She urged Judge Cannon not to take the case because, according to the reporting, it would be at a minimum really bad optics for a judge who was reversed by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals because she abused her discretion and did an enormous favor for Donald Trump that the law did not allow. 2 federal judges reportedly urged her not to preside over the case. The reason that's really important, Brian, is because of the federal standard for a judge to be removed from the case, which we just mentioned. It is if a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. The federal law requires that the judge be disqualified from the case. Now you have 2 of the judges in her own jurisdiction, including the chief judge, saying she should not have accepted responsibility for the case. And then there was something else that kind of flew under the radar. There is a new NPR interview out with a judge, a federal judge who is now retired. She was a federal judge for 27 years in federal court in New York, Judge Shira Scheindlin. She just went on record, and a very experienced jurist, as saying, in her opinion, Judge Cannon is showing undue favoritism to defendant Donald Trump, the very person who gave Judge Cannon her lifetime appointment to the federal bench, and showing antagonism toward the prosecutors, Jack Smith and his team. And she also said, and the judge cannot move through the case efficiently. She can't rule on motions in a timely manner. And in fact, I kind of took that line from Judge Scheindlin that I mentioned a minute ago. She said there are times when a judge just needs to say one word when these frivolous motions come in: denied. But she won't do that. Instead, she continues to give Donald Trump the delay he so covets because his goal all along was to push his prosecutions beyond the November election.
Glenn, we've spoken in so many of our Legal Breakdown episodes about the bucket of basically excuses that Jack Smith could bring if he were to try to have Judge Cannon removed from this case, from, what the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals initially said by virtue of Judge Cannon interfering on Trump's behalf early on in this process, to her bizarre interpretation of the Presidential Records Act and the jury instructions that she was going to give, to her refusing to even settle on a trial date, even though the Trump team had offered an August 12th trial date. The list goes on and on. Will the fact that we have two judges who sought her recusal or encouraged her to recuse herself from this case, does that lend itself further to this argument should Jack Smith ever decide to